This story time is the internet romance scam. If you have no idea what's going on, I highly suggest you go and check out this video, which is part 1 of this story time, so you can see what's going on and get caught up before you watch this. As you are aware of my last video, my grandma and her sister are elderly and really are too elderly to be driving thousands of miles. But you know, they did it for love. What they did is just nonsense, and these are consequences of like what happens when you don't think with your common sense and you use your feelings to deal with everything. I am a logical person, so even though the anxiety is very real in many situations, I deal with most things logically. Sometimes I have to cry first, but I will deal with it. At work, they've been telling me for years to be more empathetic and connect with customers on an emotional and personal level, and I'm simply not capable of that. I solve people's problems and I try not to waste much of their time. I try to waste as little of their time as possible so that I can get them off the phone or off the chat. They can go on their merry way. My great aunt was not in very good health. I know for sure she has low self-esteem from stuff that happened earlier in her life. Stuff that happened was 40 years prior to that, at least 40 years. There's got to be a point to where you can start taking care of yourself. She was morbidly obese, so for people like that, it's not easy for them to find a companion. Come to think of it, my grandma wasn't really in great health either. I do remember that she was taking heart failure medication. So the next day comes when my grandma and her sister are going to leave. My grandma said that Kelvin, the man that she was talking to online, told her that he had a mansion in Florida and he gave her an address. Bill helped my grandma with your U-Haul truck because he was trying to rearrange things. Some of the boxes in the truck had shifted and he had to put these straps around certain boxes and furniture so that they wouldn't fall over. And he did this like the night before my grandma left. You know what she did? She said they were going to drive to Florida to go to the mansion that was waiting for them. I can't make this stuff up. Grandma and her sister did not listen to my mom and Bill. You could not tell her anything. She was so set and brainwashed, and she was just so deceived into thinking that she was going to get part of that $10 million fortune. Florida is over 1,000 miles away from where we are. It's on the other side of the country. There was nothing there in Google Maps. The address that she had showed, I don't think it showed any house there or any building, if I remember correctly. Remember, this story time is like 13 years old, almost 14 years old, so to the best of my knowledge, I don't believe that there was a house there in the Google Maps. Or it might have been like a different building. It might not have been a house. I don't remember, but yeah, my teenage brain could not understand why she was so willing and eager to do that. It made 0 sense, but they did. They took off the next day and they drove their 2 packed, loaded down U-Hauls all the way to Florida, which is another 1,000 miles away. And then several days later, they had came back and arrived at our house. Guess what, guys? Guess it wasn't there. What? No mansion? It's almost as if you got a fake address. It's like these men are in another country and they just picked a random address for you. This was the biggest I told you so in the history of my family. You constantly warn someone of the dangers of this kind of thing, and then that person just ignores you. They're so like wrapped up in it and they have no idea what's reality. They have no concept of it. In my family, when it comes to giving like that kind of advice when it's very serious, we're just very blunt, like straight up, this is a scam, gets right to the point. We don't sugarcoat that kind of stuff. It's almost like a Dr. Phil episode if you think about it. Also, according to the website scamwatch.gov, sometimes the scammer will tell you about a large amount of money or gold that they need to transfer out of their country, and they will offer you a share of it, which is exactly what happened to my grandma. And then they'll tell you that they need your money to cover administrative fees or taxes or customs fees. In my grandma's instance, they promised my grandma a huge mansion, and she was fully convinced that she was going to be able to live in this mansion. She did not want to listen to anybody. She was completely convinced that this was going to be her new residence, so she was totally up for it. And part of this stems from greed on both sides, because the scammer is obviously greedy. They want your money, but you are greedy because you think you're going to get millions of dollars or even thousands of dollars, and because you want that that money so badly, you fall into that trap. So it is your own fault also for being greedy. So my grandma ended up driving back to California. She had settled there and she had lived there in the past, so she decided to go back there once she left our house. That was another several hundred-mile drive. Some years later, my family, we almost lost our house. So at this point, it was just me and my mom living in the house at the time. My brothers had moved out, and her now ex-husband, he was finally out of the picture. My grandma refused to give up her partial ownership of the house, even though she didn't live there anymore. So even though she doesn't live there, her name is still attached to the house. This house was going into foreclosure. It was an extremely stressful situation. I was looking for a job. I was having such a hard time finding a job because I had no work experience. I was just out of high school. It took me 3 years to find a job. But right about the time I found the job, the house was in foreclosure or it was about to be in foreclosure. Fortunately, I found a job, and then a couple months later, my mom found a job. I guess my mom was talking to my grandma. They were on the phone, and my grandma had been back in California for a while now. My mom was explaining to her, like, you know, this house is going to go into foreclosure. We have a lot of paperwork that we need to fill out to try and save this house. Can I borrow $100 from you so we can file paperwork and get this overnighted back to the mortgage company? They need it as soon as possible. My grandma said that she has a friend that is going to pay off our house, and we shouldn't worry. Guys, I could not even process that. No way. No way she has a friend that's just like, oh, I'm gonna pay off your house. Okay, don't worry about it. So that told me that she was still talking to someone online. She didn't say it was the same man from before, but she said it was a friend. My grandma had sent these men over $50,000 between her and her sister. We knew they had sent at least $50,000. It was so much money. My grandma denies it, but we do have a ballpark figure of what the real amount was. The bank caught on to all these fraudulent transactions that were going to Nigeria, which is a common place where scam transactions are done. They closed her bank account. She was not allowed to open a new one. Banks will do that. If you keep sending money to questionable places, especially places where they have really high fraud alerts, the bank will close down your account. And depending on how things go, you may or may not have the police called on you. My mom asked for my grandma for $100 again later. She did the most. It was $100. Really, you can't give your daughter $100 so that she can try and save her house. You really don't want to do that, really? And of course that turned into an argument. My mom was saying, you sent all of this money over to Nigeria. It's just like those episodes of Dr. Phil. I always like watching those ones where they're talking about fraudulent things and scams and things. It's very interesting to me. And when Dr. Phil sends people overseas to get the proof that he needs that those people are not actually there at that location. Some people, they say, okay, I understand now this person is not who they say they are. And some people don't. They are so delusional that they refuse to believe anything else, even when an investigator goes to that country and says, we can't find anyone here by this address or this name. It's a mess. These people literally sell their house and just about everything in their name except for their limbs just to waste it away by sending it to a stranger in another country. Don't help your family with the money. Don't live on it. Follow your heart. Send the money. Ever since this has happened, my grandma has not talked to us. She doesn't want anything to do with this side of the family. As far as I know, that's what her sister tells us, because my grandma is now not in great health and she's not mentally there completely. I think she's losing her memory. She's in her 80s now. This is like what she has to show for her life. This was what she wasted her time doing. A lot of things happen when you choose not to be charitable towards your family and you make a man more important. Let me know if anything like this has ever happened to you guys or somebody that you know in the comments. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to watch my videos. I hope I didn't bore you guys too much. I know there was a lot of weird stuff that happened in my life. I don't know if I can tell all of the stories, but thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to turn on the bell notifications and subscribe because I make 2 videos a month on this channel. I will see you guys next time. Bye.